วัสดีครับผมพีทนะครับวันนี้กีตาร์ไทย International นะครับมีโอกาสพิเศษครับผมเชื่อว่าทุกวันนี้เนี่ยมือกีตาร์อย่างเรานะครับอาจจะใช้เวลากับ YouTube เนี่ยมากกว่าการดูทีวีซะด้วยซ้ำนะครับก็มีมือกีตาร์ท่านหนึ่งนะครับเขาเป็นชาวออสเตรเลียนะครับแล้วก็ผมเชื่อว่าหลายๆคนคงจะเคยเห็นเขาจาก YouTube นะครับเขาเป็นมือกีตาร์เป็นนักแต่งเพลงแล้วก็รวมถึงเป็นอาจารย์สอนกีตาร์ด้วยนะครับเรามีโอกาสพิเศษครับคุณคริสบรูคส์นะครับมาเยี่ยมเราที่สตูดิโอของกีตาร์ไทยนะครับ Hello Chris
Hey,
nice to have you
No, it's great to be here.
Right. Okay, so first, can you like introduce yourself and what is your like music background? How did you get started playing guitar?
I got started, I had a false start and then I had a real start. So kind of like some people you hear like Paul Gilbert or something where I started with acoustic guitar lessons and I did boring lessons from a book for 6 months. And then, that was just not going to work out. So a few years later, I started to listen to rock music. I started to listen to Europe and Toto and Bon Jovi and just that 80s rock thing. And that's when I really started to want to play electric and it just never stopped then. So once I wanted to play, it never stopped. But when my parents tried to make me play in the beginning, that's when it didn't quite stick,
Yeah, and how did you start playing it? How did you learn to play guitar?
I went to a bunch of different teachers in Sydney, Western Sydney, and none of them knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to do the shred thing. I was hearing technique players and I wanted to know what was going on there, but a lot of it was very cutting edge at the time. It wasn't like everybody knew how to play like Paul Gilbert or Yngwie or whatever. So I taught myself from a lot of videos. I did 1 year at the Australian Institute of Music in Sydney, and the rest has just been self-study, really. So.
Yeah, and I heard that your father also play music, right?
Actually, he plays the drums, yeah. So I'm a third-generation musician. My father was a career drummer until retirement. My brother's a bass player and a singer, and my mum's very musically inclined as well, so...
So you born in a music family?
I couldn't help it. It's the family business. Yeah.
Okay. And who's your guitar idol when you was young?
Some of the ones from when I was young, I still have. So Brett Garsed from Australia is awesome. Steve Lukather, Yngwie, Vinnie Moore. A lot of those kind of the players that to me had melody, but there was also this really fiery thing going on. It was like it wasn't smooth. It was very intense, but melodic, and that's what, as a kid, that's what I was really drawn to. It's still what I like now, but I've just broadened that a little more as I got older and bolder.
Okay, I think you're notable as a neoclassical shred guitar player in YouTube. So, in your opinion, what is the essence of neoclassic?
I think it's a certain intensity. There's obviously a melodic and harmonic structure, and a lot of that's derived from your Baroque kind of influence, minor harmony, cadences like perfect cadences, imperfect cadences, things like that. But mostly I think it's about drama, creating tension, release, a bit of fire. It's not smooth jazz, for instance. You know what I mean? There's especially with
the like extreme tension and then release.
Because obviously, classical has a big range of emotions, and you can hear really big bombastic classical compositions, and you can hear really smooth ones as well. And I guess in the rock element, it might not be as complicated or as orchestrated, but the idea is to try and create that same sort of drama between highs and lows and in the middle, and long melodies and intense passages and stuff like that.
Okay. And in order to be able to play the neoclassic shred on guitar, you need a good right-hand technique, picking technique. Right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So do you have any advice on how to practice the right hand?
I think rhythm and timing are the most important elements, even before you think about what's happening here. A lot of the time when people come to me for lessons, the first thing I do is even just give them one note. I just say, because I'm going to practice my picking, right? But I'm staring at the wrong hand most of the time. I sit there going, So most of the time I just give students, one note, one string or something. We're just going to do things like. And when I do that, you can hear where the beat is, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not going and then clean it up later. No, it's got to start neat
Yeah.
and then get fast rather than, I'm just going to play fast and then try and clean it up later. It's a lot harder to clean it up when it's messy, but it's a lot easier to just, because you're building muscle memory, and muscle memory develops even at a slow speed. If you do it at a speed that your brain can actually comprehend what you're doing, then start to add some, and then bring in some left-hand stuff.
Yeah.
And then make it more positional, maybe, that kind of thing, up and down, and then cross strings, and you know what I mean? But I think, especially for the right-hand stuff, it should just start one string, one note. Even just dividing up the beat, quarter notes, eighths, 16 triplets, 32nd, and then do it again, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and so that way you will learn how to accent correctly on each rhythm.
Yeah, because there's dynamics. So even when you're playing maybe against the beat, slower than the beat, if you're making a choice to push ahead or pull back a little bit, it's still a choice rather than an accident. So play on purpose, everything play it on purpose, not because it's an accident,
Yeah, and normally when you play on one string and many string, some people have a problem when you're picking across the sixth string.
Yep.
Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, you have to break down what is the actual stumbling block. And there's sort of at least three ways of changing strings, because you've got pure alternate picking, pure economy picking, and then you've got the Ingve system, which is kind of like a hybrid of alternate. But the thing to do, I think, is really figure out exactly what's going on, and then how do I, just focus on that thing. Like Paul Gilbert, when he was teaching this stuff, would talk about exercises like this. And the hardest part of that is obviously the string crossing thing.
Yep.
So even just really looking at what's going on there. When I was trying to alternate pick, which I don't do so much anymore, I would sit there probably and spend twice as much time going. So that, because this was the easy bit, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so you just break down, analyze it, and do more homework on the harder stuff, right?
Yeah. So and exaggerate it if you want. So go, all right, instead of going, I might go. Anything to make it harder. But once again, I'm focusing on the beat. So if my metronome is going tick, 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 I'm thinking anything like that. So I've always tried to be very rhythmic about when I pick.
Okay. And another very hard technique for anyone who want to play shred on guitar is sweep picking.
Yep.
Do you have any advice for them?
Absolutely. The thing is, I do have a sweeping lesson product which talks about a whole bunch of stuff, but the main principles of sweeping is that it shouldn't feel like separate downstrokes. So if you were playing even just without any shape here, being able to push the pick into each new string, the rest stroke, as opposed to, because that's really hard work.
Yeah.
And so once you get that down, obviously what happens is, in the other direction, you have to kind of do the same thing. And then you have to make sure the notes don't bleed into each other.
Yeah.
You don't want to hear,
Yeah.
especially with overdrive, So it becomes a control. It's more about control than speed, because the easiest thing in the world to do on a guitar
Yeah.
is that. And the second easiest thing, you knew it, yes, right?
Yeah.
So it's about controlling the motion rather than actually having superhuman skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
Okay. So that's mainly about the right hand, right? So we will talk about the left hand. Like Yngwie way of playing neoclassic
Yep.
is pretty, different from Vinnie Moore and like Christine Pelitelli.
Yep.
Yeah, I heard that Yngwie play like he mixed a lot of like subdivision, like this beat, 16 note,
Yep.
5 note in one beat, and then 6
Yeah.
triplet,
And I think when that happens, it's about knowing where the beat, having certain kind of marker
Yeah.
points, you know what I mean? So for instance, he might write a song that does something like, so right then I'm thinking about 8th note triplets, but then when he plays it live, he might go, so, but once again, it's about knowing that having that sort of marker, or if I look at a bigger arpeggio, so it's kind of thinking there's, so
Yeah.
in the middle there, you can kind of hear a bit of a bloop.
Yeah.
Rhythmically, it's not, but there's, even within that flow, there's still a marker at sort of
Yeah.
the beginning, the halfway mark, and the end. So,
Yeah.
and it's being aware of that, I think.
Okay.
So,
And about legato playing,
Yep.
as the same way that Yngwie play it, he mixed a lot of like the subdivision together and make it really smooth.
yep.
How did you learn that stuff?
Well, same with Joe Satriani. If you
Yeah.
listen to a lot of his legato stuff, there's a flow, there's a push and a pull element.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it started with practicing things on the beat,
Mm-hmm.
and then learning how to purposefully rub against or pull away from the beat. So it might start with kind of going, that kind of thing, but then just going,
Yeah.
and sort of, and knowing where I am, or if to do it in a more sort of Satriani way, and maybe taking, but going. So once again, I'm sort of thinking, and thinking about where I want to be on certain things,
Okay. And how do you approach the fingerboard?
I think about the intervals a lot. So my dad gave me a theory book before I even knew what picking up and down was or anything like that. My dad gave me this book, and it had all the different major scales in it, and the circle of fifths, and semitones and whole tones, and what sharps are in the key of A major. Or I knew more about that than I actually knew before I knew how to play a major scale on the guitar. So once I kind of knew that, obviously I learnt my scales and I practiced my scales a million times up and down like everybody else. But when I'm playing, I'm thinking more about the interval. So, if I'm playing this chord here and I want to hear, I'm thinking that that's a ninth or a second and a third rather than a C sharp and a D, or, and a lot of that sort of, I'll relate the ideas to that. So I'm hearing those intervals over the chord rather than the names of the notes. And so it's knowing what you like and why do you like it, and then how do you reproduce it. So if you know why something sounds good, then you can do it again.
And on the different key.
Yeah, absolutely. And even, a lot of people learn their scale systems, like cage systems, or around their chords. However you relate it, then that's a good thing. Like for me, like for instance, when I play in the Lydian mode, I love to use the minor pentatonic that's one semitone below that. So it doesn't matter if I'm playing in C Lydian, if I'm playing, I know how to relate it to the sound rather than I'm not thinking about scale shapes anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. And do you have any, practicing routine or exercise that you keep doing every day to keep your finger moving?
I used to. It sort of changes now because if I'm working on, say for instance, like when I was doing the Ingwe lesson pack, I was almost like an actor playing a role and I had to stay in my character for a while. So for a long time I was practicing all the things that would go into that. Or when I was doing the sweeping thing, I would do that. But, if there's some project coming up, I pretty much just throw myself into that thing. And some other things might fall away for a while, but they'll come back later when I have time to go and work on them. But when I was sort of maybe 18, doing those, 6 hour, 7 hour, 8 hour practice sessions, I used to break up everything between, some rhythm playing, picking, more picking, some more picking after that, maybe some more picking, and then improvisation, knowing my intervals, ear training. I might not do everything every day. Like some days might just be all about one thing. I call that a focus session, where you actually deliberately just put all your attention into one thing. And then other days you go, I just want to get good at a bunch of different things or keep all my chops up. So then I might have, even if I've only got an hour, there's 4 things I want to practice. 15 minutes, 15, 15, 15. When the clock gets there, finish, next topic, So.
Okay. And do you have any favorite warm-up exercise?
Yeah, I try to do things in a bunch of different ways. So you see people have patterns like those kind of things. I'll often take some of those just to untie the knots in my hands. But I'll do them 3 ways. So I might do alternate starting with down. All the way down, and then same thing but starting with an upstroke, and then sweeping. Just to really kind of prepare my hands for anything that I'm going to come up against. And then I might even just put on a drum track and just groove to a particular thing. Depends what's coming up. Like if I'm teaching, I just want to loosen up. But if I'm going to record something, then I actually want to have my brain sort of freed up, so I might just sit there on a groove and I'm thinking more about trying to create a pulse there rather than
Okay. And how do you learn a song? When you was a teenager, I think you learn a lot of songs like Ingwe anymore. How do you learn them? By ear or?
I used to I bought a lot of tabs, when I was a teenager, the official tab, even though they were official tab books, they were wrong. A lot of them were wrong. Like for instance, the trilogy, the Ingve Malmsteen trilogy book had the arpeggios going like. I'm like, he can't be doing that. So sometimes I would look at the notes. I go, well, I'm hearing the right notes, but I'm not seeing the right pattern. So I might just, okay, it makes a bit more sense. So I might just work on the mechanic of that particular. What have I got? Down, down, up, down, down, up. All right. And maybe do that with the next arpeggio as well. Before I start to go, And even that, I can go, okay, I might even just. To try and get that technique up. And I'll just get sections, 4 bars, get it good, 8 bars, get it good, 16 bars, that kind of thing. And if something in particular was really tripping me up, it'd be the same thing about like the Paul Gilbert practicing things. Like, what is actually the thing that, why do I keep screwing that up? And then try and figure it out. I used to hear people play Metallica songs when I was a kid, and they'd be like. And they'd always get stuck on that one bit. I'm like, why don't you just work on that one bit? And just just keep doing that until until you get that. Okay, even. So I guess I was always good at breaking it down so I could build it back up again.
Yeah.
So and sometimes I would transcribe. In the olden days, it was slowing down records or cassettes, and then you slow down the cassette, but suddenly it's like in the key of B instead of the key of E, and then you have to keep transposing. But even that's good practice because it meant I was learning it in one key, and then I had to transpose it back to the original key and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. And do you have any song that you would recommend to all the guitarists they should be learn to play, like a masterpiece of guitar?
That's a tough one. I think it depends on what your motivation is, because if you're a songwriter, maybe you should go and write the perfect song.
Okay.
But as far as like technique goes, I think anything that challenges you to actually develop a new skill. So for instance, if you learnt, one Metallica song and then another Metallica song and then another Metallica song, maybe you start to see the same elements cropping up, and it's not really stretching you out as a musician. It's good to apply those skills, but then maybe if you went and tried to work out a Frank Gambale song or even a jazz standard, Satin Doll, you might get a metal head that goes, I've never played that chord before, or and they might find that change really hard. So but that's a new skill, and that's going to make you a better player. So the ultimate's going to be different for everybody, but I say anything that really stretches you out of the comfort zone.
Okay. And as a guitar instructor, what is the most problem that guitarists face when they try to play fast? And do you have any advice for them how to get over it?
I think often it's about not knowing their body or what they're currently doing enough, maybe not enough self-diagnosis, but I mean, that's my job as well, so it's not their fault. But sometimes someone might come to me and I'll go, oh, you know that you actually tilt your pick like that, which is going to make it really hard to do this particular thing. And then they go, oh yeah, that's, so sometimes it can be a simple thing, but self-diagnosis, being really honest with yourself and trying to fix something up. So instead of going and then go, why doesn't that sound good? You go, okay, there must be something that's not synchronized up. So in playing fast, it's usually not understanding what's required, with this hand and then synchronizing up the two hands. Because I think most people's hands can go pretty fast, or maybe this hand can go really fast, but they've got to develop together. So I always say to people, speed develops at a slow tempo.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. And you also offer the lesson online, right?
Yeah, so I do. The internet in Australia has not always been fantastic. So sometimes,
same here in Thailand.
Yeah, so sometimes Skype I sort of offer for periods, and then I might not for a while. But yeah, generally, so I'm looking towards building up sort of the Skype business a lot more, because I do get asked about it a lot. I do face-to-face in Sydney, and also sell the lesson packs. So the lesson packs is probably, I started to do that because people can study from me without any time zone issues or internet connection issues or anything like that, you know what I mean? So,
okay, so let's say about the Skype. If anyone interested in how they can contact you?
They just have to go to my name, chrisbrooks.com, and there's a contact page there.
Okay.
Yeah, easy as. Yeah.
Okay, and you talk about the lesson pack.
Yeah.
The latest one is the Ing Way, right?
Yep, that's the latest one.
It's the Ing and His Way.
That's
something
right.
like that. Could you talk more about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot to do with his, approach to picking, because a lot of the time when I was growing up and trying to play a lot of his lines, I was learning strict alternate picking like Vinnie Moore, but then I would try to play Ingve lines and something just didn't seem right.
Yeah.
I'm playing this phrase, but I'm ending on an upstroke, but in his playing it sounds like a downstroke, and I'm thinking there's got to be some other. I thought maybe it's economy picking. It's not. There's elements of economy picking, and there's elements of alternate picking, and there's also elements of occasional hammer-ons and pull-offs to make it all tie together. So that pack is all about that system, primarily, but then there's a whole bunch of study scale lines to actually put it into practice to make the mechanics kind of natural, because it can feel really strange at first. So, and that's what it's all about. So that might expand into other areas, but that's sort of the thing that most people want to get out of that sort of playing is how to play fast scale lines.
Yeah.
So that's what it's all about.
So everyone can also find this on your website, right?
Yep. So it's available as a digital download, or as people with bad internet can buy a USB stick, which gets mailed out as well. So.
Okay. And you're also a composer. When you write your own stuff, your own song, what is your process?
For me, because I love drums and I love bass and I play a bit of keyboards as well, sometimes it's not always about the guitar. It might start as a riff, but then it becomes, okay, maybe I'll sit there and sort of just jam out a groove on the drum kit, and then maybe a chord pattern, and then a melody. So, for instance, just to give you one example of a song, on my last album there's a song called Transfiguration, and it's a slow, I don't want to say fusion, but it's a rock fusion-y kind of thing. For me, that started with the drums sort of going just 16th note shuffle, and then I laid down the bass line. That kind of thing, and then I sort of listen to that, and maybe I'll jam over that for 15 minutes and go, what comes next? My question when I'm writing a song is always, what is the music asking me for? Not what do I want to jam in there. So while that bass line's going, I start to maybe, going out of tune now, but put some chords in there over the top and just superimpose it over that static groove, and then go, okay, next, let's put a melody down. So it really is, it's almost like a band in my head with one guy saying, I've got an idea, now I've got an idea, now I've got an idea, and then it becomes a thing, rather than, I never write a song that's just all guitar, and then I go, I wonder what the drums will do. It never happens. I sometimes know what the drums are going to do before I know what I'm going to do on this thing. So.
Okay. And what is your favorite rig? Like your favorite guitar, your favorite amp, your favorite effect pedals?
I started using the Kemper profiling amp about a year or two ago, and I absolutely love that. So for video making or recording or playing live, I've done a couple of little mini tours with it. I've done a bunch of videos with it. I've done my lesson products with it. I teach with it every day. It's the size of a lunchbox. It's brilliant. I absolutely love that. So my favorite setup is really just a guitar. Straight into that, I have a Matrix cab on
which
the floor.
Is full range
monitor. That's FR, and that's just like a wedge, like a fold back wedge, and I just use that. And if I do gigs, often there's backline provided, so I'll just sit it on the top, and I'll hear it through the cab, but the sound guy will take it straight to the desk, and sound guys love it because it's easy and it sounds great. So.
And what profile of the amp that you normally use on the Kemper?
My favorite one is from a company called the Amp Factory, and it's based on a 1987 X Marshall, which I think is quite similar to the Mark II that you've got there. So that with a tube screamer profile in front, and then I have kind of 3 variations of that I've saved: a breakup tone, a rhythm tone, and then a lead tone with tape echo. And I find that with most guitars, that rig just sounds great. I like the Soldano stuff as well in there, but that's my go-to.
And your guitar, your favorite guitar?
Probably my Sonic Blue modified Strat, which is started off as a classic player Stratocaster, but then I put a Warmoth neck on it that's scalloped and 22 frets, and it's got Seymour Duncan pickups in it. It's simple, but it's awesome.
Okay. And as you're from Australia, do you have any Australian guitarists you would like to introduce to Thai audience?
Absolutely. They should already know this guy, but Brett Garsed, who is probably one of my favorite guitarists of all time and one of my first heroes. And he played on my last album too. He's an awesome guy and awesome player. So that's Brett Garsed. And he's really good. There's a jazz player named James Muller who's sensational. Everyone should know Tommy Emmanuel already, but I have to mention him because he's fantastic.
Yeah.
But to me, they're my favorite 3 Aussie guitar players.
Okay. Last one. What, in your opinion, what is the most important thing that guitarists should pay attention to, but they are not? They're normally forgot.
I think, in terms of lead playing, because that's what people expect me to talk about, vibrato and bending in pitch. Because when people have all of these amazing chops, but then their vibrato is like, it's kind of like having a really nice suit and then wearing cheap sneakers. It's kind of like you've spent all this time making this look really good, and then this is kind of So I think even just making a few notes, kind of like, and working on different timings of vibrato, fast vibrato, slow, wide. People talk about the sideways vibrato, anything like that, but I just think spending time on it is just going to add so much more to everything else that you play. Yeah.
Okay, that's it, right. Okay, any word for Thai fan?
I love Thai people. You guys are awesome. I'm not just saying that. I love Thailand. I want to live here. It's awesome. But how do I say this in Thai? It would be how would I say I love Thailand? It'd be Wang Thai Rak Wang Thai Mak Cup.
You speak good Thai.
Just a little bit. It's very hard to remember, but I try.
Okay, Chris. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
I hope come back to Thailand again.
Yes, I will, for sure.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks.
ครับผมก็หวังว่าจะได้ประโยชน์กันนะครับก็จะเห็นว่าไอการเล่นเร็วๆอย่างเงี้ยครับเขาจะมีการวิเคราะห์ตัวเองเสมอนะครับซึ่งผมก็คิดว่ามันน่าจะมีประโยชน์กับทุกคนนะครับก็ยังไงลองไปวิเคราะห์การเล่นของตัวเองดูนะครับแล้วถ้าใครสนใจอยากจะเล่นกับเขาก็เข้าไปดูที่เว็บไซต์ของเขาได้นะครับวันนี้กีตาร์ไทย International ก็หวังว่าคงจะสนุกกันนะครับเดี๋ยวรอดูกันเทปหน้าเราจะพาท่านผู้ชมไปคุยกับใครนะครับวันนี้ผมลาไปก่อนสวัสดีครับ